So let's see what Claude Code comes up for this one. Okay, so this is not quite what I want. Awesome. Okay, this is looking great. Hey, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to animate an SVG image on my portfolio homepage using Claude Code. So to start, I'm going to head over to Claude Code, and I've already generated this prompt for us to pass in. So the prompt is animate an SVG image in the hero section of the homepage. The image should be of a speedometer with the dial starts at 0 and goes all the way to the max. So let's see what Claude Code comes up for this one. Okay, so this is not quite what I want, but it gives me a much better idea of what I can do with SVGs. Since our prompts didn't give us what we wanted in the first go, we're going to have to break down our prompt into multiple different sub-prompts and work iteratively to get our desired result. So from this image, we can identify a few different components that we can build one at a time. I've listed the components here, followed by some of the animation instructions. And in the end, I'm just asking Claude to give me back some prompts. So I'm not asking it to code, I'm not asking it to come up with a plan. I just want to split this whole thing into small iterative prompts that are more detailed and hopefully will improve accuracy. It came up with 5 different prompts. The first 2 are just about rendering the components. The next 2 are about animating the components, and then the last one is a polish and finish. So what I'm going to do is go through each one of these prompts. I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to have Claude plan each one in a separate terminal window. It came up with a plan to display some of the base components of the SVG, so I'm going to let it implement it. Cool, so it illustrated the base components. I do want the boundary to extend beyond just a little bit. I just want the tick mark to be above it, and same for this side. So I'm going to go back and modify the plan. Cool, so this updated plan contains some fancy math here for the angles, and then also it registered what I just had it modify. Okay, so looks like it just completely removed the semicircle. But to be honest, I kind of like this better, so I think let's just go with this without the semicircle and see what we get. Now that we've finished phase 1, I need to see if this current session has enough context for us to be able to reuse it for the following phase. So what you can do to see how much context you've used for the session is use this /context command, and it will visually show you how much space you have in context. So since it looks like we have a lot of space, I'm going to go ahead and continue our implementation using the same session. So let's copy over the next phase and let's plan it. And let's execute the plan. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, so it looks like the initial position should be over here instead, so let's update that. So before I ask it to implement a fix, I'm going to ask it what it thinks is going on. The reason I ask instead of having it just try to fix it by itself is that it can be easy to fall into like debug loops where you're fixing the last change over and over again. So I like to do the upfront work and understand what's going on first. So it looks like the error was due to an incorrect degrees. So it gave me a couple options, and the fix is basically to update the degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and implement it. Great. Okay, so now it's in the right position. Okay, so let's continue with some of the next steps, which is bringing in the animation. So I'm going to copy the next prompt. I'm going to check the context again just to see what this session is at. Okay, so we still have enough space. We're not halfway there yet, so I'm just going to continue with the same session. Okay, so it gave me a couple different options. The first one is basically where the speedometer will just appear, and the second one is a little bit more complex where the speedometer is going to be drawn, so you can see that visual drawing. I do really want to try this option 2, even though it recommended option 1. I think this option 2 is just going to look a lot better. I'm going to have it generate a more detailed plan. I'm just going to let it run, and if it breaks, then we can just revert. Let's check it out. Okay, so it only animated the dot. So let's go back and just revert that change. I think it was just tackling too much at once. Let's just go back and finish this, animating this dial. So let's undo that last change. Okay, and now we're back with the static SVG that we started with. So the most important animation is this red dial going from here to here. So let's modify the original plan and just focus on the animation of the red dial. Before we start a new session, I still want to reference this session as context for the new session so that Claude will know what we were originally starting with. So in order to do that, let's do status to get the session ID. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to close out this terminal since we don't need it anymore. I'm going to open a new one. So now Claude is going to get the context from this past session ID and pass it in as a summary to this prompt so that we can minimize our context and therefore improve accuracy because we're going to need it in this session with animation. All right, now let's animate the red dial. Everything looks good in the plan, so let's implement it. Okay, let's check it out. Awesome. Okay, this is looking great. In the future, I might want to add an animation for the semicircle. It would be awesome to draw the semicircle before this red dial appears. So one lesson coming out of this is to keep the context as small as possible so that Claude can only focus on 1 or 2 things at a time and thus improve its accuracy. As we saw earlier with trying to draw the semicircle, the tick marks, and the dot down here, it didn't include the semicircle because I think it was just trying to accomplish too much at once. Another lesson is once your context grows large enough and you want to start a new session to clear that context, you can capture the results of the original session with the status command, getting the session ID, and then passing that session ID to a new session to be able to start from that context. And that's really powerful because we can almost continue the context from the previous session. Another thing I learned is that instead of drafting a prompt to accomplish everything at once, use AI to generate your own sub-prompts that you can pass in. Generating these sub-prompts allows you to keep the context small enough so that Claude can perform well. These tools are really powerful when you know how to use them. Subscribe for more videos like this to keep learning with me. Thanks for watching.